The whole description she does of the Portland hospital, the birth, that was completely fabricated. We all know.
The royal world just got rocked to its absolute core. Tom Bower, the man who has made a career out of uncovering secrets that the most powerful people on Earth desperately want buried.
I don't see how the Queen, who was described by Harry as vicious in his book, by Harry in the Apple interviews, can forgive him. I mean, he'd have to eat so much humble pie.
Has just dropped a revelation so explosive, so deeply personal, that Prince Harry reportedly cannot hold himself together. We're not talking about another palace feud. We're not talking about another Netflix deal or a tabloid headline that fades in 48 hours. This is something different, something that cuts straight to the most vulnerable, most guarded part of Harry's identity. And the silence coming from Montecito right now? It's the loudest silence we have ever heard. Before we break this all down, and trust me, there's a lot to break down, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on your notifications. Because this story is moving fast, and you do not want to miss a single update as it unfolds. We post every time something new drops, and with this saga, that's basically every hour. Now, let's get into it. Who is Tom Bower and why does this matter? First, because some of you might be asking, why does Tom Bower's name carry so much weight? Why is it that when this particular man speaks, the entire royal establishment flinches? Tom Bower is not a gossip blogger. He is not a random voice on social media running conspiracy theories from behind a keyboard. This is a man with decades of investigative journalism behind him. He has written meticulously researched biographies on some of the most powerful figures in British public life, including royals. His books don't just sell. They reshape public perception. They force institutions to respond. They make headlines for months. And his track record matters enormously here. Because when Bower has dropped bombshells in the past, claims that seemed outrageous, claims that were immediately dismissed, claims that people laughed off, many of them eventually turned out to be true. Not some, many. So when Tom Bower starts talking about Lilibet, about Archie, about what might really be behind the carefully constructed Sussex family image, the world does not shrug it off. The world stops, and it listens. That is exactly what's happening right now. His latest claims have gone far beyond anything he has suggested before, and they have reportedly sent shockwaves through Harry's world that are impossible to contain. According to sources close to Montecito, Harry has been completely destabilized, pacing, sleepless, obsessively scrolling headlines late into the night, watching video after video, reading thread after thread, a man, reportedly, on the edge. But here's what you need to ask yourself right now. And keep this question in the back of your mind throughout everything we're about to discuss. If there was truly nothing to hide, why would this be the reaction? The claims that started the firestorm. Let's get into what Bower is actually claiming, because this is where things get deeply serious. For years, there have been quiet whispers in certain corners of the internet about the births of Archie and Lilibet. Now, before you dismiss that as fringe conspiracy territory, understand something critical. Those whispers did not start with anonymous accounts. They started with observable inconsistencies, timeline gaps, missing documentation, the absence of standard royal birth traditions, photographs that raised more questions than they answered. And then came the Portland hospital description. Meghan's own account of how that birth unfolded has been dissected relentlessly. Details that don't line up. A timeline that doesn't quite add up. A birth announcement that broke with nearly every tradition attached to royal arrivals. Critics say the deception around the birth date and time of the whole event was not accidental. It was deliberate. Now Bower isn't just reigniting those whispers. He's throwing gasoline on them with what he's describing as a closely guarded royal secret, one that may have been hidden from the public since the very beginning. His claims center on a question that many considered too explosive to ask out loud. Was surrogacy involved in the births of Archie and Lilibet? And here's why that question. regardless of what you personally believe, has the power to shake the monarchy to its foundations. The royal line of succession is not just a symbolic tradition. It is a legal and constitutional framework built entirely on the concept of biological lineage. It's about who carries the blood, who holds the legitimate claim, who can one day be considered part of the living history of the British crown. If there is any question at all, about whether those biological ties exist as Harry and Meghan have presented them, then it's not just their personal life that's in question. It's the constitutional validity of everything attached to their children's royal identity. And that is not gossip. That is a matter of national and institutional consequence. Royal commentators have been blunt about this. If the children were not born to Meghan and Harry in the traditional biological sense, they cannot hold their place in the royal line. They have to have royal blood. Without that, there's no claim. No title with any real legitimacy. No throne connection whatsoever. That's the ground zero of why this is exploding. Harry's reaction, and what it tells us. Now let's talk about Harry, because his reaction to all of this, or more precisely, the reports coming out of Montecito about his state of mind, are as revealing as anything Bauer has claimed. The man is reportedly falling apart. Sources describe a home atmosphere that has shifted from the sun-drenched, peaceful California retreat we were sold in Netflix documentaries to something tense, suffocating, and heavily charged with anxiety. Staff are reportedly walking on eggshells. The atmosphere has turned dark. Harry, insiders say, is pacing, snapping, barely sleeping, glued to his phone in the early hours of the morning, scrolling through headlines, watching YouTube videos picking apart every detail of his family's history, rereading threads on forums where strangers are dissecting his life with forensic precision. That right there. Stop for just a second and think about that image. A man who stood on global stages and spoke passionately about mental health.
This is not a surprise to anybody. It's really sad that it's got to this point, but I've got to do something for my own mental health, for my wife's.
Who built an entire post-royal identity around healing, therapy, and emotional stability. Who told Oprah that leaving the royal family brought him peace. That man is now reportedly the one who cannot switch off, cannot find peace, cannot stop watching the world pick apart the most personal parts of his life. And here's the question that contrast raises, and it's a question you have to sit with honestly. Is this the reaction of a man who is simply frustrated by false rumors? Or is this the reaction of someone who knows the truth is far more complicated than they've admitted? Both answers are possible. But only one of them explains why the silence has been so total, so absolute, and so relentless. His old military colleagues, men who served alongside him, who respected his discipline and his grounded sense of purpose, are reportedly pulling away. They don't recognize him. They remember a soldier, focused, clear-eyed, certain. What they're hearing described now sounds nothing like that man. And the cruelest irony of all this: fatherhood was supposed to be Harry's redemption arc. In interview after interview, in his memoir, in his Netflix appearances, Harry leaned hard into the idea that being a father gave him everything that royal life took away. Purpose, grounding, a reason to fight. Fatherhood was his safe place, his anchor. And now that anchor is the very thing being pulled up from the seabed and examined in public. Meghan's calculated silence and why it's not working. While Harry reportedly unravels, Meghan is taking a completely different approach. Cool, controlled, strategic, silent. Sources say she has gone full crisis management mode, and not the emotional, humanizing kind she's deployed before. This is cold, calculated, legal muscle silence. Her team has reportedly been firing off cease and desist letters to media outlets, issuing formal warnings, threatening defamation action, working the phones and the inboxes behind the scenes to get stories killed before they spread. And here's what's deeply ironic about that strategy. It is not working. In fact, it is making everything worse. Every cease and desist letter that gets sent out becomes a news story in itself. Every legal warning to a journalist becomes evidence in the public's mind of someone trying to hide something. Because if the claims were simply false, transparently, provably, demonstrably false, the playbook is not lawyers. The playbook is transparency, documentation, evidence. You don't hire a legal team to silence a rumor that can be destroyed with a birth certificate. That's the thought that's running through millions of minds right now. And no amount of legal threats can silence that thought. The public that once celebrated Meghan for her supposed rawness and honesty, the woman who sat across from Oprah and said she was telling her truth, is now watching her fight tooth and nail to prevent other people from asking about hers. The contradiction is impossible to miss, and social media isn't missing it. Every retweeted thread, every viral TikTok frame-by-frame analysis, every Reddit post cross-referencing old pregnancy photos with medical timelines, all of it feeds a beast that no PR team, however sophisticated, can control. And here's something even more damaging than the rumors themselves. Meghan's silence is creating a visible fracture between the two of them. Harry looks broken and raw. Meghan looks composed and strategic. Two people living in the same house, experiencing the same crisis, reacting in ways that are almost opposite to each other. That's not the image of a united front, and the world is noticing. The palace's silence and what it means. Now here's something that doesn't get enough attention in this conversation, and it should, because it might be the most telling element of the entire scandal. Buckingham Palace has said nothing. Not a word, not a statement, not a quiet background briefing to a friendly journalist, not even the subtle, deniable kind of palace communication that has served the monarchy for centuries. Complete silence. And for a royal institution that has historically responded, even subtly, to threats against its reputation, this silence is remarkable. The palace routinely issues statements on far smaller matters, correcting minor inaccuracies, addressing tabloid speculation, reaffirming royal protocol. But on this, nothing. Why? There are two possible explanations, and both of them are deeply unsettling in their own way. The first, the palace genuinely doesn't know what to say, because the claims are serious enough that any response, whether a denial or an expression of support, could set off a chain reaction they cannot control. The second, the palace already knows something, and that something is precisely why they're keeping their distance. Insiders have reportedly confirmed that quiet conversations are happening behind those palace walls. Not press briefings, not media strategy sessions, crisis management discussions, legal advisors, senior courtiers, trusted family representatives, all huddled together, talking about succession, bloodline, and what it means for the crown if certain truths were ever confirmed. Think about the weight of that for a moment. The British monarchy, one of the oldest, most enduring institutions in human history, is reportedly sitting in private meetings trying to prepare contingency plans around whether Harry and Meghan's children are truly who they've been presented as. If that's true, and the sources are consistent, then this is no longer gossip. This is an institutional crisis being quietly managed in real time. And there's one more detail that cuts through everything else like a knife. No birthday wishes. Not even the standard, formulaic two-line acknowledgement that the palace posts for royal birthdays automatically. When Lilibet's 4th birthday came around, nothing from the senior royals, no post from King Charles, no message from William and Kate. Compare that to how George, Charlotte, and Louis are celebrated. Warm photos, gushing messages, public expressions of pride and love. The contrast is stark, and the public is not letting it go unnoticed. Ask yourself, when a family goes out of their way to pretend a child doesn't exist publicly, what does that usually mean? The DNA test question. And now we arrive at what has become the central, unavoidable question that is exploding across every platform: the DNA test. This is not fringe territory anymore. This is being discussed on national television, by respected commentators, by royal historians, by mainstream journalists who would never have touched this topic 2 years ago. The argument is straightforward. If the claims being made about Archie and Lilibet's biological origins are false, completely, provably false, then a DNA test ends this story forever. Immediately, totally, with no room for doubt. The speculation stops. The rumors die. The tabloids lose their angle. The conspiracy theories collapse. Done. So why hasn't that happened? The silence in response to that question has become, for many observers, the most damning evidence of all. Not because silence proves guilt. It doesn't, legally or logically. But because in the court of public opinion, when the simplest possible solution to a devastating rumor is available and untouched, people start to form their own conclusions. Some voices have gone even further, arguing that when it comes to the royal succession, Harry and Meghan do not have the right to privacy on this matter. That the question of whether their children carry royal blood is a constitutional issue, not a personal one. That the public, the people whose taxes fund the monarchy, whose national identity is wrapped up in its legitimacy, have a right to know. Now that argument is controversial. Many will push back on it. But the fact that it's being made, openly, loudly, and by people who are taken seriously, tells you everything about where this conversation has arrived. And every day that passes without a response? The argument grows louder. Harry and Meghan built their entire public identity on the concept of speaking their truth, on transparency, on refusing to hide behind palace walls and institutional silence. That was their whole selling point. And now, on the one question that perhaps matters more than any other, they have chosen palace-level silence. That is the contradiction that is eating their credibility alive. The larger stakes, what this means for the monarchy. Let's pull back for a moment and look at the bigger picture. Because this isn't just about Harry and Meghan's image. This isn't just about one family's secrets and whether they get exposed. This has the potential to shake the British monarchy in ways that have no modern precedent. The monarchy's entire legitimacy, its justification for existing, for commanding the loyalty of millions, for occupying the central position in British national identity, rests on two things: bloodline and trust. Take away the certainty of bloodline, and you take away the foundation. Everything built on top of it, the titles, the succession order, the centuries of tradition, suddenly becomes unstable. And trust between the institution and the public it serves, that's already been eroded significantly by years of royal scandals, departures, feuds, and controversies. But a scandal of this magnitude, one touching the biological legitimacy of royal children, would be categorically different from anything that has come before. This wouldn't be a story about who said what behind palace doors. It wouldn't be a story about broken relationships or professional disagreements. It would be a story about whether the public was fundamentally, systematically deceived about the identity of members of the royal family. That kind of deception, if it were proven, doesn't just damage reputations, it calls entire institutions into question, which is exactly why the palace is reportedly moving so carefully. They know the stakes. They understand that one wrong step, one poorly worded statement, one piece of documentation that raises more questions than it answers, could light a match that burns down the whole narrative. And so they stay silent and let the fire burn at what they hope is a safe distance. But fires don't always stay contained. The Sussex brand, built on sand? Let's talk about the brand, because that's ultimately what all of this is threatening to destroy. Harry and Meghan didn't just leave the royal family. They built a competing narrative, a media empire designed to position them as the authentic, transparent, courageous alternatives to a stuffy, secretive institution. They signed with Netflix. They gave the Oprah interview. Harry published one of the most personal memoirs in royal history. They launched podcasts. They gave speeches. They accepted awards for transparency and advocacy. Every single move was built on one core message: we tell the truth, and we tell it publicly, and that is what makes us different. That was the brand. Honesty as identity, transparency as rebellion. And now, every single piece of that brand is being held up against the current silence and found desperately wanting. Because the couple that told the world they would always speak their truth is refusing to speak it on the one topic where speaking it would actually matter. The Netflix documentaries feel staged. The emotional confessionals feel rehearsed. The perfectly framed Instagram moments of family life feel curated to the point of fiction. The more people look back through the archive with fresh eyes, knowing what they now know, asking the questions that are now being asked, the more the whole edifice starts to look like an elaborate, years-long performance. And audiences who feel they've been sold a performance don't just lose interest, they get angry. Former supporters, people who defended Harry and Meghan against every tabloid hit, who called the critics racists and monarchists and bitter establishment loyalists, are quietly stepping back. Saying things like, "Something doesn't add up." Saying things like, "I still support them, but I have questions now." Saying things like, "Why can't they just be transparent about this one thing?" That shift, from loyal defender to cautious questioner, is the most dangerous shift of all, because it's happening in the demographic that was supposed to be their unshakable base. And once that base starts asking questions, no PR strategy in the world can stop what comes next. The psychological toll, and the truth about who Harry has become. There's something deeply human at the heart of all this that gets lost in the noise of conspiracy theories and royal politics. Prince Harry is, at his core, a man who has spent his entire life shaped by trauma. He was 12 years old when his mother died.
Harry, he's just 12 years old. He always wanted to have a normal life, and instead he has to stand here, stifling his grief.
12 years old, walking behind her coffin in front of a global audience.
The funeral procession marches on, with Prince Charles, Prince Harry,
trying to hold himself together under the weight of collective grief. That image, that little boy in that moment, is one of the defining photographs of the late 20th century. And it shaped everything about who he became. For decades, Harry fought against the institution that he felt, in some part, was responsible for the chaos that consumed his mother. He found therapy. He found purpose in the military. He found what he believed was love and safety with Meghan. And then he found fatherhood. And fatherhood, by his own repeated account, was everything. It was the thing that made sense of everything else. The reason he walked away from palace life. The anchor that kept him grounded when everything else felt unstable. Now that anchor is being pulled up and examined in public, by journalists, by commentators, by millions of people on the internet who have never met him and never will. If you had to identify the one thing guaranteed to psychologically unravel a man who has already carried decades of unprocessed trauma, it would be a public challenge to the authenticity of his identity as a father. That's not drama. That's psychology. And it explains everything about the picture being painted from inside that Montecito mansion. The pacing, the sleeplessness, the obsessive scrolling, the mood swings, the reported snapping and emotional volatility. This is a man in crisis, not a media crisis. A personal, psychological, identity-level crisis. And the tragedy, the real, human tragedy, at the heart of all this royal drama, is that no amount of PR management, legal muscle, or calculated silence can fix that. The only thing that could fix it is truth, whatever that truth actually is. The road ahead, 2 paths, 1 choice. So where does this go from here? There are really only two paths available to Harry and Meghan at this point, and each one leads somewhere dramatically different. Path 1. They continue the silence. They let the legal team keep firing warnings. They keep the Montecito gates locked and the social media accounts carefully curated. They trust that the storm will eventually exhaust itself and move on. The problem with this path? This particular storm shows no signs of moving on. Tom Bower's credibility and media reach mean his claims won't just fade. They'll be referenced, repeated, and amplified for months, possibly years. Every new silence will be read as confirmation of something hidden. Every legal threat will generate its own headlines. Every carefully staged public appearance will be picked apart for evidence of a performance. The silence strategy worked for a while. It doesn't work anymore. The world has seen too much, asked too many questions, and noticed too many inconsistencies. Path 2. They step forward. They address the claims directly. They provide the documentation, the clarification, the transparency they've spent years telling the world they stand for. This path is harder. It requires vulnerability in a way that goes beyond what either of them has shown before. It requires confronting, publicly, the very rumors that are currently destroying their peace of mind. But it's the only path that leads anywhere other than slow, grinding, reputational erosion. And here's the painful reality that sits at the center of both options. Whatever happens next, whoever speaks first, whatever is revealed or concealed, will define how Harry and Meghan are remembered. Not just in today's headlines, in history books, in documentaries, in the conversations people have about the monarchy decades from now. The questions being asked today about Archie and Lilibet will not simply disappear into the archives. They will persist. They will be revisited. They will echo through the historical record of this period of royal history in ways that neither Harry nor Meghan can fully control. The only variable is whether the truth, whatever it is, comes out on their terms or someone else's. What you need to watch for next. Now here's what we're monitoring closely, and what you should be paying attention to in the coming days and weeks. First, watch the palace. Any shift in the total silence from Buckingham Palace will be enormously significant. Even a subtle acknowledgement, even a non-statement statement, would signal that the institution has decided the current approach is no longer sustainable. If that happens, it means something has changed internally, something major. Second, watch Harry's public appearances. Every time he steps in front of a camera right now, his body language tells a story that no PR team can script. The tension is visible. The strain is real. Look at his eyes, his posture, the micro-expressions that break through the rehearsed smile. That's where the truth lives in the short term. Third, watch the media landscape. Tom Bower is not done. He has never dropped a single bomb and walked away. He circles. He adds detail. He responds to pushback with more evidence. If his sources are as solid as his reputation suggests, there is more coming. Stay tuned. Fourth, and this is the big one, watch for any movement on documentation. Any legal filing, any court proceeding, any publication that references specific birth records, hospital documentation, or biological testing. That's the thread that, if pulled, unravels everything. And fifth, watch the public. Watch how the conversation evolves, because right now the public is the most powerful force in this entire story. Not the palace, not the media, not Tom Bower. The millions of ordinary people asking questions, sharing videos, running timelines, and demanding answers. When public sentiment reaches a certain point, a tipping point, it creates a pressure that no institution and no individual can simply wait out. Buckingham Palace knows this. Harry and Meghan's team knows this. And based on the reports coming out of Montecito, Harry himself knows this. The question is whether anyone will move before that tipping point arrives. Here's where we land. Tom Bower has done what he's built his entire career doing. He has taken a question that powerful people desperately want, buried, and dragged it into the light. He has forced a conversation that Harry and Meghan have spent years trying to prevent. And he has done it at a moment when their credibility is already fragile, their support base is already wavering, and the institutions around them are already pulling away. Whether his claims are ultimately proven or ultimately disproven, the damage to the Sussex brand is already real. The questions are already out there. The timelines are already being analyzed. The photos are already being compared. The speculation is already in the mainstream. And Harry is reportedly already breaking under the weight of it. The man who once promised to protect his family from exactly this kind of scrutiny finds himself unable to stop it. The woman who built her identity on speaking truth finds herself hiding behind lawyers and silence. The institution that was supposed to represent them finds itself watching from a safe distance, preparing for the worst. This is the story of a fairy tale, not just cracking but crumbling. And you are watching it happen in real time. So let's hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. Do you think there's truth behind Tom Bower's claims? Do you think Harry and Meghan owe the public answers? Or do you think this is all a coordinated smear campaign designed to destroy what's left of their reputation? Comment below. Share this with someone who follows the royals. And hit that subscribe button, because this story is nowhere near over. The next chapter is already being written. And trust us, you do not want to miss it.